This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review, and I'm looking at the Big Ten East Division as we continue our college football Power 5, I should say, conference previews. We're going to continue it today with the Big Ten East Division, a very interesting division. Is this the season where Ohio State gets overtaken by perhaps a Michigan for this division? I'm going to see if I can answer that question for you here, or at least give my assessment on that situation. And speaking of Ohio State, that's where we're going to start. We're going to look at the Buckeyes to begin our Big Ten East preview. Really, on paper, they look like a team that could be a little bit vulnerable to being caught in this East Division. Michigan, could they do it? Potentially. Michigan State, I know they've got issues and they've got some personnel they'll have to replace, but they could still get it done. But for Ohio State, when you lose 5 first-round picks from just a tremendous team last year, you've obviously got work to do to try to replenish that. But Urban Meyer, as we know, tremendous head coach, great recruiting ability. I get the feeling Ohio State is going to be more of a reload, not a rebuild team. He's just recruited far too well over the years here with this Ohio State program. You know, there are concerns, no question. Offensive line with just 2 starters back, but they are important ones. The senior center, at least, is back, Pat Eifline. Other 3 offensive line starters projected this season, new to the starting role, but they all played snaps and got game action last year. So that concern about lack of experience on the O-line could be mitigated by the fact that the guys stepping into new starting roles are guys that at least got significant playing time last year. You know, the good news is, Ezekiel Elliott's going to miss him, obviously, at running back, but they've got candidates to replace him. Should be solid still running the football, despite losing Ezekiel Elliott. We've got a situation where, they did lose most of their receivers from last season, but, they've got guys that can step in, fill in well. Curtis Samuel, Dontre Wilson, Noah Brown, Corey Smith, and to be honest with you, they actually might have more depth at wide receiver, even though not quite as much starting experience going into the season. So not a bad situation there. They do have their leading tackler on defense back in linebacker Raekwon McMillan, not the chef. For you Wu-Tang fans out there, just Raekwon McMillan at linebacker for Ohio State. They also have a solid rush end in Tyquan Lewis coming back. So pass rushing, from a pass rushing standpoint, this team should be good. Should be able to get pressure up front. Should still be a pretty good defense overall. Ohio State, their schedule, they've got some tough road games. Oklahoma, Michigan State, Wisconsin, all on the road for this Ohio State team, so not an easy schedule to navigate, but I think they're in the mix here in this division, and I wouldn't write them off just yet. Michigan's still got to beat Ohio State to take this East Division. And speaking of Michigan, here they are, next team up, Michigan Wolverines. And how about Jim Harbaugh? What a debut season for him in Ann Arbor. Just a tremendous job. 5-win season in 2014, no bowl game, and then 10-3 last season. Big-time blowout win over Florida in the Citrus Bowl. Just a phenomenal job already being done by Jim Harbaugh here in Michigan at his alma mater. The Michigan offense really had been just dormant for years, but they did improve last year. They got a lot out of that offense, considering the quarterback was Jake Rudock, an Iowa transfer, really a guy that was brought in as a temporary fix at the quarterback position, not a guy that Michigan would be looking at long-term to be their starting next big quarterback, yet they still did a solid job improving on that side of the football with Jake Rudock on the offensive side. Rudock gone, but their quarterback situation definitely has potential. They've got the Houston transfer, John O'Korn, who's, at least as of right now, likely to be the starting quarterback, returning and being part of this Michigan team. He's battling with Wilton Speight for the starting job. Now, they do say Wilton Speight does have a chance and is really pushing O'Korn, but a lot of people seem to think that in the end, Michigan will at least give O'Korn that starting nod with all the experience he had as a quarterback with the Houston Cougars previously in his college career. Offensive line, you got to like that they've got 4 starters back, plenty of experience and production as well at receiver. Jake Butt, the tight end, back. That's good to see. They have a very good defensive front, should get a pressure on opposing QBs. Should be able to stop the run. They're moving one of their top defensive players, Jabril Peppers, to linebacker this season because that's an area of weakness and concern for Michigan. So that should fill and insulate the linebacking core this season. Top returning tackler is back as well, Jordan Lewis at cornerback to lead a secondary, which was tremendous. One of the top teams in the country, fewest passing yards allowed last season. There's no reason that secondary shouldn't be as good here this year. Tremendous defense, but I think this offense is really going to improve. this year. I like John O'Corn. I liked him at Houston. I think the reviews seem to be very, very confident with him so far in Ann Arbor. And if Michigan's game totals are in the 40s, like they were quite a bit last year, because of how strong that defense was, it could be a team that you could bet over the total at low numbers, because I think this offense is going to be a lot better this year here in Michigan, continue to take strides forward. You don't want to anoint Michigan as Big Ten champs or certainly East Division champs just yet, with Ohio State and Michigan State still lurking in the weeds, but Michigan's got a chance for sure to win this division. There's no question. Michigan State Spartans next up. Head coach Mark D'Antonio definitely has some work to do in East Lansing this year. What a great run they've had recent seasons, but now you got to replace Connor Cook, who's gone. Tyler O'Connor, fifth-year senior, going to be the favorite to win the quarterback job, will be the starter likely for this Michigan State offense at quarterback. They have a solid group of running backs. Offensive line should be in solid shape, and be able to get the ground game going. And they're going to probably have to rely on that ground game a lot more while they ease Tyler O'Connor into the quarterback spot. The good news is, offensive line, looks like they could be in decent shape to and have a decent ground game to at least take some pressure off O'Connor at the beginning of the season. They got to replace a couple key wide receivers, including Aaron Burbridge, who aren't back, but they do have some decent options, including R.J. Shelton, who had a good season last year. Defense, should still be a pretty good Mark D'Antonio defense. 6 starters back, including their top tackler at middle linebacker, Riley Bulla, 106 tackles last season, did a tremendous job there. They do have questionable depth, though, along the defensive line. Not much depth or experience along that unit. So that's going to be an area of concern. Maybe stopping the run may be a little bit of a weak area for Michigan State. The secondary, is definitely a group that should be improved. They did not play as well pass defense-wise last season. They took a step backward. There were teams that were able to throw the football fairly successfully against Michigan State. And I do like the ability, to recruit for Mark D'Antonio. Let's be honest, Michigan State's been good a few years in a row. They've been getting some of the better recruits now in that state because of the down times that Michigan had in the Rich Rodriguez era and in the Brady Hoke era. But now with Jim Harbaugh there, recruiting is going to be a little bit tougher now for Michigan State, so they're going to have to really work at it in terms of being able to recruit that top-tier talent from that state. You don't want to write off Michigan State, and I'm certainly not going to do that with Mark D'Antonio as the head coach, who's done a great job, but going to be in tough. Ohio State still looks like they're going to be formidable. We know how good and capable and how much potential Michigan has, so it's going to be tough for Michigan State, but I don't write them off, that's for sure. Penn State Nittany Lions next up. They've got plenty of new faces on hand this season. James Franklin really with a makeover of his coaching staff. A new offensive coordinator, Joe Moorhead, formerly the head coach at Fordham in the FCS ranks. He's taking over as the offensive coordinator. Joe Moorhead, Bent Pry, promoted to defensive coordinator. And it's really going to be a different looking offense here in Happy Valley this year. Joe Paterno days, going back to the Bill O'Brien days and the beginning of the James Franklin era, plodding, slow, methodical, run-heavy offense. That's what we've seen from Penn State for the longest time. Not so much this year. Joe Moorhead's bringing in, a more up-tempo, spread type of offense. They're really going to change things around, really look different. They've got a quarterback they think might suit this kind of system well in the sophomore Trace McSorley, who looked very good in the spring. Christian Hackenberg gone. Franklin's finally got the spread system, the up-tempo, the no-huddle, the dual-threat quarterback now that has the ability to make plays with his feet as well as his arm. And so we'll see if McSorley can get the job done at quarterback, learning a new offense here. Going to be interesting to see how this new-look Penn State offense are finally getting with the times here in 2016. And let's start to get in a little bit more of an exciting, interesting offense that people would actually want to come here and try to play. So that's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Offensive line, biggest area of concern, though, probably for Penn State coming into the season. They were part of a wretched group last year. They do have 4 starters back on that O-line, but boy, yielded tons of sacks last year, and that unit is going to have to be a lot better. The defensive side of the football, defensive line also has concerns. 3 starters lost on that group. Linebacking core should be awesome. like it usually is with Penn State. Secondary has a couple of starters back, and it was a good pass defense last year. So really along the lines, in the trenches, offensive line, defensive line, that's where the biggest areas of concern are for Penn State. But I do like that Franklin now, third season at the helm. That's usually when, coach now has more of his recruits in there. System is in place, chance to take a step forward, and I think they will take a step forward. I don't know about straight up wins, how many they're going to get, but I think from a point spread value standpoint, I think you can make some money with Penn State this year. I'd be looking to back them throughout the course of the season. He's had some really nice recruiting classes now the first couple of years with Penn State here as James Franklin. Top 25 recruiting classes for the last couple seasons, so could be a little bit of a buy sign here on Penn State here in 2016. Indiana, the Hoosiers next up. Kevin Wilson back as head coach, largely because they finally qualified for a bowl game for the first time in 22 years last year. Got to replace Nate Sudfeld at quarterback. Looks like Richard Legault, favorite to win the starting quarterback job for Indiana. They do lose Jordan Howard, phenomenal running back. We know how good he was with this Indiana offense. Devine Redding looks like he's a capable replacement. They have 4 starters back on the O-line, a great group last year. Receiving core, tons of weapons, tons of experience, tons of production returning. So this offense shouldn't skip a beat. I think they're still going to be an Indiana offense that, as they have in years past, going to be able to score points in bunches and put up points. The question is, can they get any stops? Can you get the other guys off the field? That's been the Achilles heel for Indiana for the longest time. I mean, that defense was just atrocious once again last season, 120th in the country in total defense, 38 points per game allowed. That number's got to come down. That's all there is to it. If this team's legitimately going to build on getting to a bowl game last year, they're going to have to continue to improve on defense. The defensive line totally revamped, only 1 starter back, major concern there. Linebacking core does look solid. Secondary was dreadful last season, so they do have a couple starters back there, but that secondary was Swiss cheese last year. They were pathetic. I mean, how much of a jump can that secondary make, even though you've got some returning pieces back? I mean, you were exceptionally bad in the secondary last year. Do you go from exceptionally bad to bad? Do you go from exceptionally bad to mediocre? Do you go from exceptionally bad to good? I can't see them going from exceptionally bad to good. I don't think you can make that kind of jump in 1 year. So maybe you go to being mediocre, but still, I mean, there's a long road back for just a porous pass defense last year for Indiana. I think they're right in line for what they did last season. Maybe get to 6 or 7 wins. Maybe get to a bowl game once again for a second year in a row, but I don't think the ceiling's any higher than that for Indiana. Just too many holes and too much of a gap that they've got to try to make up on the defensive side of the football. I don't know if they can do it in 1 year. Maryland Terrapins next up. Randy Edsel-Era's finished finally. What a disaster that was. Just terrible job by Randy Edsel at College Park. Now we're going to see if DJ Durkin, the new head coach, he's the next guy to try to turn around Maryland, but he has a solid resume. DC at Florida and Michigan. Durkin, a guy that's going to be counted on to make this defense better. That's his background. As for the offense, a new offensive coordinator brought in, Walt Bell, formerly at Arkansas State, so that means this is going to be an up-tempo, no-huddle spread. Again, like so many other teams in college football go into this kind of system. The new DC for Durkin is Andy Boo, who was previously with Stanford, Cal, and Nevada. Lots of question marks, though, with this team. There's no doubt about it. How about Caleb Rowe and Perry Hills still battling it out to be the quarterback? Battling it out to be who's more inept? Because that's all I've seen from them. Who's more able to throw an interception? I mean, really, how are these two guys still battling for the quarterback spot here? They're pathetic. I mean, Caleb Rowe and Perry Hills, they've been the definition of inconsistent. They've been the definition of someone wanting to rip their hair out on a weekly basis. And they're still here trying to be the quarterback for this team in week 1. I don't trust either of those guys. Now they got to learn too a new up-tempo scheme. I don't know how much better any of these two quarterbacks can be. I have not been impressed. There's been no consistency, none, zero, from either Caleb Rowe or Perry Hills. Thin at wide receiver, running back position looks solid. They do have 3 starters back on the offensive line, but again, lots of work in progress to be done there. 6 starters gone on defense, but it was a bad defense last year. 34 points per game. Can't be any worse, really. Secondary struggled. Pass rush was solid, but there is some concern. Lots of their top pass rushers from last season that made that front a little respectable gone, and now there's holes needing to be filled on that defensive line. So interesting to see if they'll be able to do that. It's going to take DJ Durkin time. I actually don't mind the hire. I kind of like the hire, but They have nowhere to go but up, but it's going to take time, I think, for this team to get wins, to get into a bowl game, and I don't think it'll be this year. He needs another year, I think, to expect a legitimate jump from Maryland. And we're going to wrap things up with the Rutgers Scarlet Knights here in the East Division. We're wrapping it up with them because they're likely finishing in the basement here in the East Division. I mean, let's call it out for what it is. It's a terrible situation. The sanctions against this team, Kyle Flood, completely doing a horrendous job. All the suspensions last year. Chris Ash taking over as head coach for Rutgers. Ash, the defensive coordinator at Ohio State prior to this hiring. Rutgers defense, they got to do something with it, and at least they've got a guy that did a good job running that Ohio State defense, because this Rutgers defense has just been in shambles, and it's gotten worse and worse in recent years. 3 leading tacklers from what was already a bad defense last year are gone, so this could be even more growing pains for Rutgers on the defensive side of the football this year. The good news is the defensive line has 3 starters back. That's a little bit of a positive for them. But still, this defense was just absolutely abysmal. Against the run, they were terrible last year as well. Against the pass, they were a sieve. I mean, there's just so many holes that Rutgers is going to have to fill defensively. And even the offense, which was the better unit last year, they've got question marks. Chris Laviano battling for the quarterback spot with LSU transfer Hayden Reddig here going into fall camp. New offensive scheme will be implemented because they have a new OC with Drew Maringer taking over. He's a guy that's from an up-tempo spread type of school of thought, so you're going to see another team with an up-tempo spread offense here with Rutgers, with Maringer as the OC. Now, they do lose Leonte Carew, top receiver last year, but they do have some guys that can step in, fill that role at wide receiver. And they do have 4 offensive line starters back, which is definitely something positive for Rutgers. So should have success running the football and throwing it, assuming the receivers can step up, fill bigger roles. They got a long ways to go, though. I mean, Rutgers was 4-8 last year, 1-7 in the Big Ten, an absolutely disastrous season. Chris Ash, I think, is a good defensive mind, but it's just going to take him time because of just how bad the defense was last year. So may not be this year for Rutgers, but it's going to take them time to regain a little bit of respectability and get some footing here in the Big Ten. So that will wrap up my look at the Big Ten East Division. I'll be back later this week to look at the Big Ten West Division.
Always on the go? Bet365 has one of the top mobile platforms in today's market. Sign up today and don't let your busy life keep you out of the game.